Hi, this is Frank Tanner, and you lucky people are fortunate enough to be listening to Dying Scene Radio.
You don't want to try that in an American accent?
Fuck no, no one wants that.
Dying Scene Radio. Dying Scene, Dying Scene, Dying Scene, Dying Scene, Dying Scene Radio. Dying Scene Radio. Dying Scene Radio. Dying Scene Radio.
Is this actually working?
It works, mate.
This is the first. I'm a virgin to this. This is my first time. Be gentle with me.
What kind of t-shirt you got on there, Frank?
I'm wearing a homemade T-shirt that a good friend of mine made. It's got some Towns Van Zandt lyrics on it.
Oh, hell yeah. Towns Van Zandt, man. That outlaw country guy.
Yeah, I've got his initials tattooed on my wrist as well, right there somewhere.
My friend Martini would love you, man. He's like that too. He has Graham Parsons on him somewhere.
Yeah,
It says GP, and that you can make up those initials for other things, you know?
Yeah, well, that means doctor in the UK, general practitioner. So maybe he's talking about doctors. Who knows?
No kidding, man. Now, so that's really interesting that those are like major influences. I definitely see that. That's some awesome country music, you know?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, funnily enough, the last 6 months, all I've really been doing is listening to like proper like old school country, like George Jones, Merle Haggard, that kind of stuff. Like, it's funny, that stuff really isn't particularly well known in the UK, so it's all kind of new to me, but it's great stuff.
It is, and it wasn't very well known to me either, actually, until my friend that I just mentioned got me onto it. And, you know, I would always say I love punk rock the best, right? That's my favorite genre, but I really like everything except for country, right? Everybody always says that quintessential, like, cliche term, except for country. But then you start realizing that, you know, it's the pop country that sucks.
Yeah, totally. Well, like... Oh, I was about to make a controversial statement there, but, you know, quite a lot of the sort of poppy emo stuff and the poppy punk stuff doesn't really do it for me personally either. So, I mean, I think we've found our problem.
Anything pop, yes.
Well,
actually,
I like some pop music. I mean, Motown is pop music, do you know what I mean? So I'm fine with Motown, but, like, yeah, the sort of, like, homogenized version of some stuff is not to my taste.
The modern stuff is what you want to stray away from. But that's the new classics to some people, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and the thing is, I mean, there was an interesting thing with this lately, actually, because Jason Isbell, who I think is incredible, and who is sort of a friend, like, we've played shows together and stuff, and we hang out. You know, his record just went in at, like, #1 in the country charts, and it's a new record. He's an amazing new songwriter. It's great country music, but it's funny because he's been kind of shunned by the sort of Nashville elite, but he's just topped the country charts, so there's something going on.
A lot of the country greats were shunned by the Nashville elite, if you go back in history. So it's kind of a good thing to be shunned by the Nashville quote-unquote elite. You know,
yes,
so that's
they're not even aware I exist, so I'm going to claim they're shunning me too. It'll make me feel good.
But see, obviously that goes right along with the whole theme and ethos of your new record that you just came out with, right? Because wasn't there some creative differences and you kind of turned your back on some people and said, I'm not listening to you, I'm doing it my way. I have a vision for this.
Yeah, I mean, I need to be slightly careful about how I phrase this, but basically, with the previous record that I made, which was the first record I made working with a major label, I was in a very weird place when I made that record. It's quite a difficult record, it's quite a dark record, and I felt like I was a little bit all over the map creatively at that point in time, to be honest. With this new record, I knew exactly what I wanted it to sound like, look like, and feel like. What songs going on it and what order they were going on it, like from a very long time ago. You know, I had a very focused idea about what it was going to be. And it took me, I had some battles on my hands to kind of convince other people that these were the right ideas and this was the right thing to do. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it's my record, so I can make it how I want to make it. But, you know, I want to do that and kind of convince people to kind of come along with me who I work with rather than telling them all to go get stuffed or whatever, you know. But I mean, it worked out. It was a long, drawn-out thing, and I had a lot of kind of. There was more than one evening of me sitting in my apartment in London and kind of like sort of throwing my toys out of the pram and going, "Motherfuckers," and like getting really pissed off.
Frank, the new record is Positive Songs for Negative People. So this is for everybody and everybody's negative? I mean, this is the quintessential, again, antithesis statement, right?
Okay, the thing about the title is, the title came sort of dribbled out of my mouth halfway through a drunk conversation with an old friend of mine about what I do for a living. And not just about what I'm doing with this record, but what I've been doing for the last decade or so. And it just kind of seemed appropriate without sort of getting too deep into the analysis of it. Of course, you use something for an album title and it will get analysed by lots of people. But I think it's important to say that I'm not the most po-faced, serious person in the world, you know what I mean? Like, there's a degree of tongue in its cheek to the title. Like, I was in Germany the other day doing interviews, and the interview was like, so you think that your fans are all negative people, yeah? And it's like, no, dude, come on, that's not, it's not quite what I mean, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, if there's ever been a target audience for my songs, it's myself anyway, so maybe I'm the negative person.
You know what? I hate the fact that I just asked a stupid question that some German reporter asked.
I didn't mean my reply quite like that, but it's just, you know, I think it's a good kind of summation of the vibe of the record. You know, it just feels right, you know, and that I don't really want to kind of analyze it too much further than that myself.
Yeah,
other people can do that.
You have a new video that just came out for the single Josephine.
Yes,
and you got tar pouring all over yourself, and you know, yeah. What's the deal with that?
Well, I mean, it was, you know, I got sent a bunch of kind of treatments for the video, and it kind of struck me as really cool and kind of classic. And I mean, visually with this record, I was kind of, for the artwork and for the presentation, I was trying to go with something a bit more kind of like self-consciously modernist. Black and white photography with very clear, defined lines. And I don't know, the video just kind of seemed to go with that. The thing to know about the video is that I had the worst hangover any man has ever had ever when we were filming it, and if you look at it, and if you look at my eyes, you might be able to see a little man screaming behind my eyes throughout the whole shooting process, because I wished I was dead while it was happening.
Looking just a little bit lost, like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah, well, it's just, you know, like, I mean, it really, I was hoping that maybe having 10 gallons of freezing cold paint poured over my head was going to, like, sort my hangover out, but it didn't. It made it worse.
Hey, Frank, when you're doing the songwriting process, do you ever think about it with the video in mind?
No. I'm not the most kind of like visually oriented person when it comes to sort of art and stuff. I mean, I can't draw to save my life, you know. To me, it's like songwriting is a sacrosanct process. You know, it has to be something that happens by itself for its own reasons, and I wouldn't want to write songs to please record label people or to please a girlfriend or to get on the radio or indeed to fit with a video idea. Do you know what I mean? It's like songs have to answer to themselves, and that's it as far as I can say.
So being that you're kind of unconcerned in that part of the musical process, the video, do you have people who write the videos for you, or do they present ideas to you as what their interpretation of the song is?
Yeah, I mean, it's different every time. I mean, sometimes they're my ideas. You know, I do have some ideas for videos, and then sometimes I do a lot of work with a guy called Ben Morse, who's a good friend of mine. We did the Next Storm video when I was wrestling CM Punk, was his idea. He's a big wrestling fan, and that was a really cool vibe. And then with the Josephine video, it was a director who I got put in touch with by the record label called Damien, who was great, Damien Weilers, and yeah, it was a cool idea.
I got a little follow-up question to that. It's kind of a similar theme regarding the performance you did at the 2012 Olympics. That whole performance, that was pretty interesting. Did you have any hand in setting that up at all with all the different elements and the various...
No, very much not. That was Danny Boyle's vision. He's, you know, the director who did Slumdog Millionaire, and he did Trainspotting and stuff like that. He got asked to do the opening ceremony. It turns out, I had no idea, he turns out he's a big fan of my stuff, and he got in touch and said that he saw a place for me in the way that he was trying to present our country to the world, which is kind of a mad thing to be told, particularly to be told by someone like Danny Boyle. So it was a strange couple of months when we were putting that together. But I mean, it was an amazing thing to be part of. It was totally unique. Nothing like that ever going to happen to me again.
So when you chose I Still Believe to represent the country, come ye to soulless corporate circus tops?
Well, okay, two things. First of all, that was it was his choice of lyric. But the point of that lyric, you know, people kind of gave me shit for like playing in like the O2 Arena because of that lyric. And it's like, but the point of that lyric and that verse of the song is it's a list of places where I played gigs. You know, it was a reference to places I'd already played when I wrote the song, because the next line is like basement bars, bunker squats, or whatever it is. You know, and it's like, if I'm not condemning that, so I'm not condemning the soulless corporate sex stuff. It's not. It's just places where people gather to have shows. So it's not a condemnation.
So the attendance of that show was well over 200,000 people, with another 25 million watching on live TV. Describe to me the adrenaline rush that accompanies that. That's got to be a huge rush.
It was. I mean, I to be honest, I find kind of after a certain point, adrenaline rushes aren't really useful for me to do a good show, you know. And just before, we did 2 dress rehearsals for the opening ceremony, and then on the actual night, just as I was walking out, like this guy with a pair of headphones and a clipboard came over and said, "Yeah, there's 25 million people watching on the TV or whatever." I was like, "Dude, tell me that afterwards." Do you know what I mean? Don't fucking tell me now. So it was cool. It was good, but it wasn't really anyone in front of us apart from like a bunch of people herding sheep around the fake field. You know, so it was kind of more like a mental video shoot. Obviously, there were a lot of people in the stadium or whatever, but it wasn't like there's a front row that you can kind of bounce energy off, you know?
I was wondering, is Josephine a real person?
Well, that's the question, really, isn't it? I mean, to me, that's one of the things, that's my favorite set of words on the album. I mean, what I like about it is that I find it quite hard to explain simply what the song is about, which to me is the sign that it's a piece of poetry that required writing, because if you can explain what a song is about in 5 sentences, then you might as well not bother writing it, you know? But it's kind of a song about the question whether or not a kind of perfect soulmate, a perfect other exists, and if so, where the hell is she? Where's she been hiding?
Well, feminism destroyed that for us. But anyway, what about Amy? You mentioned Amy in different songs from different albums. Reasons Not to Be an Idiot, I Am Disappeared, and Telltale Signs. That's a real person?
That is a real person. She's not called Amy. I changed names to protect the innocent. But she's somebody who I feel like I've finished writing songs about her now. She's not really part of my life anymore. We're not enormously in speaking terms right now, I'll tell you that as well.
Well, you wrote an entire record about that, right? About breakup.
Yeah. That record was actually about somebody else, technically speaking. I mean, Amy features on it for various reasons, but that record was about a different person. But
Amy could be anybody.
To say that I'm now friends with. I took her out for dinner the other day. I paid, obviously, but it was good.
Is going Dutch in the UK a big thing amongst daters or friends, or is it unusual for you to pick up a check for someone?
What does going Dutch mean?
Going Dutch would mean where I'm going to pay my share and you're going to pay your share.
Oh, like splitting the bill.
Exactly. Going Dutch is...
I had all these terrible images in my head of what going Dutch could mean.
The Dutch ovens, of course, I understand.
None of which should be discussed on a family program. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I guess it's reasonably common, but I was trying to be nice, so...
Frank, regarding your Twitter hashtag, FTRAOK. Yeah, that's pretty interesting, man. Random acts of kindness. You know, I actually saved a bum. I gave food, shelter, and employment to a homeless man I met in New York City. And what was your random act of kindness? You had basically what? Somebody gave you some show tickets or something like that?
I kind of started off with that. I mean, I wanted it to be, that is one thing about it that's got, I think, a little confused. I wanted it to be more people talking about kind of kind things people have done for them rather than kind things that they've done for other people. Because to me, I don't know, I'm an Englishman. I was raised to sort of believe that you should sort of not necessarily brag about kind of nice things you've done to other people. You should just do them and then virtue as some reward or whatever, you know. But I mean, there's been some amazing stuff that's come up through that. I mean, we always try and have these little games. We had a cool one on the previous record called Tour Flag, where we had the flag got made and then people had to get it from one show to the other without me kind of helping, and you know, and it was a way of sort of people to kind of cooperate and meet strangers and that kind of thing, which is all to my sort of philosophical taste, if you like. So that was really cool. I really enjoyed that. And then, yeah, this time around, there's been some amazing ones. My favorite one so far is about a guy who found a sword that he returned to its owner, and the guy had it stolen in 1971. And he found it in like a thrift store with some details of who the owner was, and he took it back. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yep, creating good karma for yourself also.
Yeah.
But we interviewed Joey Cape last week, and during our discussion, we brought up a series of YouTube videos that he made with his daughter, and we understand you sent him a message indicating it was quote-unquote spot on. How's your American accent, Frank?
Oh, wow. Oh, don't make me do my American accent on this now. It's rubbish. Well, I don't know. I can... the thing is, like, particularly if it's like towards the end of a long American tour, you know, you sort of tune into the local cadences and that kind of thing. And it's funny, like, I think it's all right, of course. I do it in front of American people. I was on tour years ago with a band from Florida called Fake Problems, and they were just literally just, like, giving me $1 and being like, and then giving me a sentence to say in American because they all were enjoying it so much. There's a sort of deep South thing that I do which really infuriates my American friends. I tell you what, and that kind of business rubbish.
Before you step too much further over there, Frank, I'm going to say that I'm from Tennessee. So, of course, the Southern dialect, whenever I go home and I visit my family there, I pick up that Southern twang, that drawl that you have. But I honestly think that the Englishmen and people from the South kind of share the same dialect. I think it's easy to jump back and forth between the other. Although I do a horrible UK accent.
Well, the thing is, you know, it's now going to sound like I'm just saying this to be nice, but honestly, this is true. Like the Deep South, or the South, let's say, is like my favorite part of the States. We've been fortunate enough to tour through a number of times, and it's funny. It's one of those places in the world, if I can try and say this sort of in a politically correct way, but it's like it's a place that's kind of much maligned by history and by stereotypes, kind of thing. And I remember before the first time I went to the South, I was all nervous about how it was going to be, and then it was just like the nicest, most friendly, welcoming people in the world, pretty much. You know, certainly the best manners in the world are in the South, and that's a fact, and I've been everywhere. And it's just wonderful. The shows down there are great. Everyone's just really nice, you know, so I do love the South.
Would you like some sweet tea?
God, I'm from Florida, and this idiot lives in Florida right now, and that's how we know each other. But I definitely disagree with you. That's why I moved out of there, man. There's so many problems with the South, and God, Florida.
Yeah, sure. I mean, of course, and you have to bear in mind that my experience of the world is filtered through a very weird prism, which is that I meet people who come to my shows, and it's unlikely there's going to be that many people who are going to kind of like wanting to call me an asshole in that context, hopefully, if the show went well. But I mean, you know, I don't just exist in the gig venue. You sort of wander around a little bit. But yeah, my experience, certainly, this is a true fact statement that I will stand by. American people have better manners than English people by a country mile.
And with that, Bob, can you please give us your British accent so Frank maybe feels a little...
Piss off, Bobby.
I can't do it at all. I'm not good at accents at all.
Piss off, Bob.
You really passed up an opportunity to do a duet with Taylor Swift?
No? Okay. Right. We can talk about a broader topic here, which is clickbait journalism, which is something that I'm extremely bored of. You know, I think that music journalism as an art form has died in the last 20 years, certainly. I was reading some Grail Marcus and Lester Bang, stuff like that. Music journalism used to be a serious form of artistic criticism, and it's now just idiots waffling on BuzzFeed. With a few notable exceptions, I should say. I did an hour-long interview with a magazine who shall remain nameless, and at one point just said, yeah, we're looking for someone to do a duet, and obviously, you know, Taylor Swift and that product. That's it. That's everything I said right there, and that was the headline, that was the main focus of the article and all that, and it's just like, you know what, man, fuck you. That's not in any way representative just of what I said or who I am or anything else. I don't know anything about Taylor Swift, and I don't care. And I don't mean that in a negative way. She might be the best songwriter and the most wonderful person in the world. I wouldn't know. And she doesn't figure in my life in any way, and it's just really frustrating to me. Do you know what I mean? You spend such a long time trying to explain who you are and where you're coming from and say intelligent things, and then one half-a-second comment becomes the focus of the piece.
What exactly was the comment again? I'm sorry, because you broke up.
So we had the song, we were looking for a female vocalist. I wanted it to be someone American because the song is about Christa McAuliffe, who was one of the astronauts who died on the Challenger space shuttle disaster, and I thought it would be respectful to Christa McAuliffe's memory to have an American do the guest vocal. I know, obviously being English, I probably know more female English singers, all of whom are great, but like, I thought it was an American, and we were kind of going through names, and of an evening in a bar, someone jokingly kind of went, oh, Taylor Swift, and it was a joke that lasted for all of about half a second. And it was obviously never a serious suggestion. Now it's some headline and some...
Well, okay, so Bob, let me roll here, man. I got two things really quick. So first of all, about the journalism, I mean, we're proof that you're right on your assumption. Bob and I, oh my God, look at us.
Well, this is radio. I'm talking about print journalism.
Well, it's journalism also. But the second thing was that song about Christa McAuliffe. That's an interesting song, man. And I wanted to touch base on that because, you know, like I just mentioned before, I'm from Florida originally. I specifically remember being 5 years old in my kindergarten class, going out to watch the Challenger go up and seeing the explosion. And, you know, they put us in like a prayer huddle and everything like that. And, you know, I just remember that. And it was just so influential. What was it about that made you record that song Silent Key?
Yeah, I mean, I was 4 when it happened. I can't quite figure out whether or not I can remember it or whether I can remember remembering it, if you see what I mean. Like, it's sort of just, it's on the cusp of my memories. But I don't know, you know, it strikes me. I was, incidentally, in discussing this, try and take care to be respectful to the memory of real people who died. You know, I don't want to be callous about that in any way, but, like, I always thought there was something kind of, like, striking and almost poetic about the idea of a primary school teacher who was employed to sort of engage the nation's children or the world's children in the idea of spaceflight, then died on international television in front of the world's children. There's something kind of poignant, to say the least, about that.
Do you think she really survived for a little while? Because they say, I was reading about this, and they were talking about that some kind of recording.
Well, no. Okay, here's the thing. This is another thing that's worth saying about that song. I discovered after finishing and recording the song that there was some tabloid ran a story about a recorded message that they'd left on the way down, which is bullshit. It's not true, and I'm not referencing that in the song, and I'm not interested in trying to stoke up, you know, tabloid idiocy. My song is a flight of fancy. The only thing that I know for sure is that some of the oxygen tanks had depleted by an extra 2 minutes, 45 seconds by the time the capsule hit the sea, which suggests it's possible that some of the people inside were still alive. That's it. That's the only thing that anyone knows for sure. And my song is a flight of fancy, kind of leaping off from that point. I don't want to endorse kind of crappy tabloid journalism, you know.
I saw it on Snopes. I knew it was BS or whatever. But
yeah, you know, and to me that's the angle on it I was trying to avoid. You know, it's really kind of disrespectful to the people who actually existed to print that kind of shit, you know, as fact. So hopefully my song doesn't come across in that way.
It is a powerful thought, though. Even though it's like a conspiracy theory thing or whatever, it is powerful to think of that they were alive after that happened. But anyway, many people change their political orientation as they grow older, and there's a slew of quotes out there that support this reality. I think the most famous being, if you're not a liberal at 25, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative at 35, you have no brain. It's something to that effect. I definitely experienced a similar shift in political perspective as I matured and my eyes opened to the true nature of the world and its political systems. But this is actually something that you, Frank, dealt with in The Guardian when a blog writer put you on blast by digging up some past interviews and citing certain things, calling you a Tory or right-winger. It's that same thing that we were just talking about yellow journalism, people just printing whatever. I feel that most artists, though, operating on the level that you are hard-pressed to say anything that could remotely cause disparity or alienation amongst their fan base. What makes you different?
Well, I mean, to be honest, that's not far off the point that I've reached in my slightly older life. I mean, essentially, yeah, the whole issue of politics. I mean, the first thing is that, yes, my opinions on the world changed a little bit with some experience and hopefully with the tiny sliver of what might be called wisdom as I've got older and seen more of the world. I'm not a conservative in any sense of the word. I reject that with real passion. I'm a liberal. But in the original sense of the word, in the John Stuart Mill, Adam Smith sense of the word liberal, I believe that society should be organized in such a way that each individual gets to kind of express their own individuality and freedom as much as possible without inflicting on other people. That's about it. I think one of the problems I've had is that, I was kind of a teenage leftist, and I was part of that kind of time of my life is on record because I was in bands, and it's very easy to find things I said a long time ago and compare them with things I've said more recently and call me an asshole. The other thing is that, there was certainly a period of time when I was not as good at kind of being careful about how I phrase these statements to the press. I mean, I guess you could say I was less polished about it. But when you're in an underground band, not that many people are listening, so it doesn't really matter that much what you say. When you reach this kind of bigger degree of success, you have to be more careful and more nuanced with what you say because a lot of people are going to tear it apart. And I've got better at more precisely expressing my opinions as time has gone by. I mean, I did feel that some of the shit that went down with me was a little unfair, although it's important that I'm not protesting overall about it, because at the end of the day, you can't spend your whole life trying to let the world know who you are and then go crying to mum when it turns out that not everybody loves you. That's bullshit. But I mean, I do think that there was a lot of kind of misrepresentation of what I think about the world, and like I say, I'm a classical liberal. I consider each individual person to be an individual and equally worthy of respect and consideration, and that I'd like to see a world in which everybody gets to grow and express themselves as much as possible. Some people think that makes me an asshole, but that's not really. I don't really have anything more to say about it. And this is the thing. Over time, the thing I learned after that Guardian thing was that I really can't be fucking bothered to talk about politics in public. I really can't. The tone of public political discourse, particularly when you throw Twitter into the mix, is really, really low, and I've got way better things to do with my time than argue with morons.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that, because for whatever reason, my cohort over there loves to interject politics into the show, and it's boring, Bobby.
Okay, cool.
Frank, let's do a lighter question, man. How many tattoos do you have, man? When did you get your first tattoo? What's your most ridiculous tattoo? You got any stupid tattoos?
Oh, my God, yeah. I'm going to have to start doing some acrobatics in a minute. Right, well, okay, questions in the order they come. I have no idea how many tattoos I have anymore. I could count, but it slightly depends how you count. Like, for example, I've got knuckle tattoos, right? Is that one tattoo? Is that two tattoos? Or is it 8
Freeborn. Tattoos? That's a good question.
There's a question for you right there. My first tattoo was up here. It's UKHC, as in United Kingdom Hardcore, as in hardcore punk. I got that done when I was 16 years old, which is technically illegal, but fuck it. I don't believe in cover-ups and I don't believe in regret for tattoos, so I keep it there. There it is. No, I mean, there's no reason I regret it. I still love hardcore punk. It's still the music that kind of gave me most of my views on the world, And then in terms of stupid tattoos, I've got loads. Yeah, I mean, I've learned over the years that my left leg is my stupid tattoo leg. And basically, whenever people are drunk and tattoo guns come out, I point at my left leg. I'm going to try and do this whilst keeping my earpiece in. I've got a number of stupid things down here, including a Dale Earnhardt tattoo. I've got a kangaroo with a unicorn horn down here somewhere. I've got my mate's initials. I've got the brand name of some Canadian painkillers. Yeah, some really stupid shit down there. But, I mean, it's cool, that's what it's for. It's my stupid tattoo leg.
Hell yeah, man. I was on America's Worst Tattoos on TLC.
Really?
Yeah. They flew me out to LA and gave me a cover up, and I had the stupidest tattoo on there, but now I have an awesome tattoo.
What did you have?
I had the Italian flag and it said WAP. And then a ridiculous caricature of me and my friend James, who's black, and I was a bulldog and he was a monkey, and we had machine guns.
Wow. That is the worst tattoo in the world ever.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad though as when, like, if you actually saw it. A lot of people commonly say, "Oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be," having seen it anyway. But I understand about stupid tattoos. Has anyone ever asked you to tattoo your signature onto them? I just interviewed Millen Collin a couple days ago.
Wow,
in there.
Yeah, I remember. Right then.
Yeah, my buddy Frankie Donofrio, he was a tattoo artist down in St. Petersburg, Florida, and he had them tattoo their signatures on his leg. And you never had that anything like that ever happen to you?
I've tattooed Oliver Peck. Do you know Oliver Peck, tattoo artist from Dallas, Texas? He's on that Ink Masters show. He's a good friend of mine. He does a lot of my work. He asked me, he has what he calls it his like party arm. He's got just a bunch of bullshit all over his arm. And he got me to do my FTHC logo that I have on his arm, but I got them the wrong way around because I was really, really, really wasted when I did it. But it's kind of on the back of his arm in a place he can't directly see. And he was like, "Are you done? How's it look?" And I'm like, "It looks great. Never, ever look at it." And just kind of walked away. I shouldn't ever be allowed to tattoo anyone. It's fucking awful.
I got a stupid question for you, man. I guess going back to your New York, I'm sorry. I always say New York hardcore because that's what I think, when I think hardcore. But anyway, did punk rock begin in the UK or the USA, man? My opinion of this is the latter. What say you?
Well, I mean, I think the very beginnings of punk rock were definitely in the USA because you're talking about Iggy and the Stooges, effectively. But I guess after that, it moves to the UK. It kind of ping-pongs backwards and forwards. I don't think it's a particularly important question. Do you know what I mean? I know that a lot of people have spilled a lot of ink and a lot of kind of angry words about this. It's just kind of like, you know what? I like good bands, and I'm not a nationalist, so I don't really care.
How do you feel about your style of music being referred to as folk-funk? I mean, folk-punk.
Polka-funk would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty kick-ass.
That's what I'm going to iTunes classify myself as from now on, polka-funk.
Are you the punk rock Bob Dylan of this generation?
Absolutely not. I mean, I don't think Bob Dylan wanted to be the Bob Dylan of his generation, so I'm not sure why anybody would sort of volunteer to be the Bob Dylan of any kind of any generation, Plus, I mean, I think to broaden out the question a tiny bit, I mean, I think one of the cool things about the internet is that music isn't monolithic anymore. The thing about the history of music up until the internet is that the sort of avenues of media distribution were so kind of bottlenecked and so narrow that you could have someone like Bob Dylan, or in my generation you had Nirvana and then Oasis. You have these bands that were just like generationally defining and epochal because there was only so many radio stations and magazines and that kind of thing. That shit doesn't happen anymore, and it's never going to happen again, and it's a good thing because what that actually represented was a small minority of people essentially imposing their taste on the world. And I say that as a big fan of Nirvana, but the fact it's just not the case that any band is going to capture the taste of an entire generation. That's bullshit. And with the internet, the great thing about the internet is, like, some idiot somewhere kind of goes, guitar music's dead, and all the people who like guitar music kind of go, what? Carry on. I'm over here listening to the music I like, because your taste is no longer dictated by these really narrow channels of media distribution. That was not perhaps what you were looking for when you asked the question.
That opens up other things. I mean, that's interesting. Goes back to your whole philosophy on everything, and politics included, I think.
Yeah, I just think it's a really good thing that basically the thing about the internet is you can go and seek out the music you like and the people who like the music you like and explore a whole scene, a genre, and whatever it might be. And if your thing is polka-funk or electronica or DJing or house or punk rock or whatever it might be, you can just go and do that, and you don't need to have anyone's permission to do it. You don't need a magazine coming out every week that you run down to the shop to go and buy to find out about it, and if that magazine isn't covering the shit you like, then you don't find out about it. That whole kind of gatekeeper thing is gone now, and I think that's great.
I'm unable now to edit out the part where I said polka-funk, so...
No, it's brilliant. No editing. In fact, I've been thinking about directions for my new record. It's definitely going to be a polka-funk record.
All right, so you know what? What about the boss, man? Bruce Springsteen. Are you from Hampshire County or Monmouth County, New Jersey? All the Springsteen diehard fans I've met have lived either on Staten Island or New Jersey.
Well, you've now met one who lives in London, so there's plenty of us over here as well. I'm a really, really big Springsteen fan. I mean, I came to him late in life. His sort of perception over here for the casual listener is that he's the guy who did Born in the USA, and that's about it. And, I just sort of had him kind of twigged in my musical universe as being that guy with the blue jeans with the flag in his back pocket or whatever it might be. And I thought it was kind of naff. And then a friend of mine gave me a copy of Nebraska, and it kind of completely blew my mind. I was like, what the hell is this? This isn't what I thought it was going to be at all. And then, obviously you go from there and you do some exploring and you discover that he's the best singer, songwriter, and performer of his generation, in my opinion. So,
would you say at that point that he kind of redefined your musical direction? With you coming from a hardcore background and then listening to a record like Nebraska, would that be about the same time when you picked up an acoustic and kind of went solo?
That was part of it. I mean, it wasn't like a light switch moment with just that one record, I mean, actually, specifically, the biggest impact of any one particular record or set of records was the Johnny Cash American Recording Series, volumes 1 to 4, which I picked up. And that really kind of just turned my head about the things that you could achieve with just an acoustic guitar and a voice, or indeed with just a stripped-down arrangement of whatever kind. I think before that, because I grew up with punk and hardcore and metal, and I wasn't aware of kind of other types of music before then, and it was sort of the realization you could be heavy without having, like, to take your shirt off and scream at the front row. That was a discovery for me, as kind of lame as that sounds. So yeah, I mean, there was definitely a period of kind of finding out about more different types of music. I mean, I also, when I was a kid, my older sister used to Counting Crows a lot, and there's an English folk punk band from the 90s called the Levelers, who were a really big deal for me too. So there was a lot of stuff going into it. Plus, I mean, certainly melodically and in terms of songwriting structure, bands like NoFX and Descendants are still a huge part of my songwriting, and I think always will be.
Have you ever met the boss?
No, I've not, and I would like to, although, I mean, I don't know. It's a funny thing that, like, I mean, I'm obviously not going to say no if the opportunity arises, but I'm not sure I'm kind of actively seeking the opportunity. I'm sure it'd be cool, but yeah, I don't know what I'd say.
Do you think you might be starstruck like it was when you met James Hetfield? I read somewhere.
The James Hetfield thing.
Yeah. I read that in your own words, you acted like a complete prick, losing the ability to talk and kind of stuttering and drooling. You even mentioned that you were self-aware enough to realize how awful that looks when people do that to you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, the thing is, I always, like, whenever I'm meeting anybody who likes my music, I always want to recognize that they're generally trying to pay me a compliment, and that different people are more kind of socially adept than others, and I've kind of got better at it over the years with practice. But yeah, we were opening for Social D on a tour, and we were in Oakland, and James Hetfield came out to the show, and I met him backstage afterwards, and I just kind of went over and went, hi.
Do you find it repulsive that my co-host Bobby's doing the same thing to you right now? Bob, why so quiet? You haven't asked any questions, really.
That's because you don't ever shut up, Bobby. You don't ever come up for air. No, man. Okay, so you want me to ask a question? I did have a question. I read that you studied alongside Britain's Prince William at Eton College. What was that like? Did he have an entourage? Were you guys drinking buddies?
Don't know. No idea. I didn't study alongside him. He was vaguely within the same institution, which was the large one.
That's funny because, Wikipedia, you should never, ever get your information from Wikipedia, which I'm sure everybody on this conversation knows.
But I hope so. It's quite often something I have to tell anyone I go on a date with. Please tell me you didn't fucking look me up on Wikipedia before you came out on a date.
It also states that you're formerly straight edge, having been vegetarian 11 years and a teetotaler for 5. And I've already heard you say, that's true?
That is true, yeah. I mean, I was very much part of the kind of like, straight edge punk rock hardcore scene. I listened to Earth Crisis a lot when I was younger. My Threat and all that kind of stuff. Bold, Judge, I was a big Spirit of 88 fan, that kind of thing. I went straight edge when I was about 16. I mean, I'm English, which meant I started drinking kind of roughly around the same time I started walking. So it was a thing I did for about 4 years. I mean, the straight edge part of it was really good. I think I avoided some pitfalls. And actually, funnily enough, I've just quit drinking again for the time being because my tour schedule right now is too hard for me to do with a hangover anymore. Well, it's a function of the fact I'm 33 years old now. There are things you can do when you're 23 that you can't do when you're 33. I was vegetarian. I mean, I was kind of interested in animal rights for a time. I listened to a lot of propaganda and kind of like Length of Time and a bunch of Belgian Good Life Records, hardcore bands and stuff. But I don't know, it just kind of moved out of my life after a time, and I enjoy good steak these days.
Ah, yeah, man, me too. So I don't know how much you pay attention to U.S. news, but recently in Kentucky, Kim Davis, who denied the same-sex marriage licenses based on her religious beliefs, yada yada, was released from jail to the soundtrack of Survivor's Eye of the Tiger song and was subsequently sued by the band and their label. Have you ever had someone use your music for an unauthorized sanction? What would you do about it?
Not in any political sense. I didn't know that she'd been sued by the band, by the way, but that's cool as shit. That's somebody who's really misunderstood the fundamental principles of a liberal society right there, by the way. Anyway, no, not in any political way, though. I mean, to be honest, I would ban any political party of any stripe from using my music, regardless of whether or not I agree with them, because fuck that, man. I don't want that association with my music. There was one TV show that's used my music that I despise. It's a TV show called Made in Chelsea. And they played some of my music, and because the way it works with licensing TV shows in the UK is you generally have agreements with a whole channel, not with individual shows, kind of thing. And they put it on that show, and I asked them to take it off because I hate that show. And then, well, actually, funnily enough, the other day they've kind of got a new version of it where they're in LA or something, and apparently my objection didn't apply to that, so they played it again. So I'm having it removed again.
Oh, those fuckers. I'm not going to ask you the rehashed question. I'm sure you've been asked a million times about whether there'll be another Million Dead reunion show or anything of that
I can answer
nature.
it,
But
no. There you go.
But no, and I assume that to be the answer. But Mog Reward was something that you did as well, which seemed to be like you can kind of get your hardcore influences out with that. Is that still active? Are you doing anything with that on your free or downtime?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, okay, they're the records we made, but it was a very long time ago, and I'm not really interested in looking backwards. It makes me very happy that people like those records and like that band, but it's definitely a thing of the past these days. I don't see a point in looking backwards. Mog Reward is great. I love it. It's so much fun. The record we did was a blast. We are planning on doing another record at some point. I mean, I don't know when it'll be because I've got essentially no time off between now and the end of 2017 or some shit. I don't know. You know, I'm a busy guy. But I definitely, the three of us in Mog Reward have the intention to do it again. So that is something that will happen.
More songs about Natalie Portman and her tapeworm?
I don't know specifically if there are going to be more songs about Natalie Portman's tapeworm. I did get hate mail from the Natalie Portman fan club, which was actually the pinnacle of my year last year. That was the best thing that happened in 2014 to me.
That's why we do these things, right, Frank?
Exactly, to get hate mail. But I mean, with all due respect to Natalie Portman, because I actually don't really particularly have an opinion about her either way, with respect to her, who joins a fan club for an actor? It's like, you do understand they don't write the words they're saying, right? They're just reading out a script. They're doing it very well. I can't do it. It's a skill. Maybe it's just me. It just seems totally mad to me to be in a fan club for an actor.
I understand.
Bob, I'm sure you got some more Wikipedia questions there, but I just got one more question I want to ask, and then I'm done. All right?
Go ahead. Let's go ahead and start to wrap this thing up, man, for sure.
All right. Frank, I too had a friend named Josh who died prematurely, man. I even wrote a poem about it, and I said it at his funeral. It was called Josh's Prayer. I still remember it word for word to this day. I even got his name and dates of birth tattooed on me like a tramp stamp. There's another indication of my stupid tattoo choices. But what was it about your Josh which inspired you to write songs for Josh? What was it about his untimely demise, man? I read he was a security guard in Washington, D.C. Were you guys pretty tight despite living in different countries? And also tell us a little bit about the emotional live recording of that track. Tell us a little bit about that, please, too.
Yeah. Well, so Josh was known as that guy because everybody who went through D.C. knew him. He was head of security at the 930 Club in D.C., and like anyone who's in a punk rock touring band who toured the States who played in DC would have known him, at least by eye. And everyone on the DC scene knew who he was. We met kind of touring, but we just kind of always hung out. Like whenever I was anywhere on the East Coast, he'd come out for the shows. He came up to London a few times to hang out. We were good friends. And he took his life, which is always a shitty thing. But it was also, I mean, the thing particularly with Josh is it was completely out of the blue. No one had any inkling that he had any kind of predilection in that direction. And also, he was everybody's kind of sounding board for their problems, you know? So it was a really kind of shocking and tragic thing. Not that it's ever not shocking and tragic, but, you know, it really hit a lot of people, myself included, hard. And I wrote the song about his passing. I mean, that's kind of how I kind of deal with things that happen to me in my life, is writing. So I wrote the song. And then basically, I wanted to put it on the record, and we were thinking about ways of recording it. And there's a song on my first album of which there is no studio version; it's just a live recording. I thought it would be kind of cool to do that again, but to record the song at 930 Club because we had a show coming up there. So we recorded the song there live. First song, the encore, you know, in front of a sold-out crowd, and it was a really kind of heavy, emotional evening. But it was a weird one because the build-up to it was really quite tense and heavy and weird. And then as soon as I started playing the song, it was just the easiest thing. And I'm not in any way a religious or superstitious or supernaturalist kind of person, but I mean, it felt like I was doing the right thing for that 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, and his family was in the crowd as well, right?
Yeah, well, some of his family. I mean, but yeah, and his sister Cara has been fantastic. We're actually, for the US tour coming up, we're releasing a 7-inch of that song with a B-side, and it's going to be all benefits go to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So that's available on the tool coming up.
It's a horrible thing, man. Like I said, I'm done with. That's my last question. I appreciate you you being on the show and giving us an interview like this. And Bob,
positive songs for negative people, right here, Dying Scene Radio. Frank, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate the amount of time that you gave us.
My first ever Google Hangout. I've never done one of these before. I feel like you guys were gentle with me, as I said at the beginning, and it's been a wonderful time.